I'm Pastor Tay. Nice to see you guys tonight, and that is the hot seat, okay? So I'm going to sit down right here, and tonight we're going to begin our program. And as you know, if tonight is your first time here, live streams, the inspiration comes from Psalm 1. And Psalm 1 talks about a tree that is planted by the streams of water, and that tree represents the blessed man. And the streams represents the Word of God that streams into his life and gives him nourishment, revitalizes him, and gives him a great quality of life. And so our goal is to be planted in the Word and to find life-relevant application for our lives. Now tonight, we are going to launch a brand new series. And see that angry man up there? That guy represents our series. He's our theme guy. And the series is on anger. Now, anger is one of those emotions that can fly in all different directions. And so we're going to go for a few weeks here talking about anger from a number of different angles. For example, tonight, we're going to talk about anger towards God. And then next week, we'll talk about anger towards each other. And then the following week, that'll be October, what is that? I think that's October 10th. We'll be talking about domestic violence, and we'll have Dr. John Street joining us along with Officer Rao Alarkan. And actually, he'll be here tonight, Lord willing, by Skype. And then we're going to have a very special session with Covenant Christian School invited as well. Principal Jeff will be here. And we'll have a very special session talking about kids' anger, bullying, whining, all the stuff that kids do. And so that'll be October 17th. Go ahead and mark your calendars, invite your friends for that. And we'll have a very special guest from Alabama, Dr. Lou Priolo, and he wrote a bunch of books, actually. And he wrote 2 books, one on kids' anger. I'll introduce those books to you later. Kids' anger and teen anger. And so that's October 17th. Go ahead and mark your calendars for that. But let's wipe the blackboard. We're going to talk tonight about anger against God. Hey, Chris, can you turn this down just a little bit? I know you're busy Twittering and Facebooking, so you guys can follow along live right now. Twitter at Livestreams1 or our Facebook. You can log on. We're running Wi-Fi tonight. Live streams, okay? One word, go ahead and find us there. And you can follow along with whatever he is typing there. Hopefully he won't be writing any nasty comments about me, okay? So go ahead and you can follow Chris along there. So we're going to talk about anger against God. And anger towards God is one of the most common things that are out there, because there's so many things that are wrong in this world. You know what I'm talking about? Like, you look at all the violence in this world, and you just kind of get mad at God, saying, hey, if God is so good, why is this world so messed up? Why is there so much crime and so forth? Or you look around and so many people are out of work. Or if even maybe less than that, but you lost your promotion. Or things just are not going right with your career. You can point your finger at God. Or when relationships begin to break down, a lot of people get upset and wonder why God would allow something like that to happen. Now, I'm going to mailbox over there. And so, hey, this is a very important topic, and I want to make sure, because every session is on YouTube. It's online at livestreamsonline.net, and we want to make sure that it gets recorded tonight. So thank you for your patience on that. Go ahead and you see the green cards on your tables. You guys can fill them out, and we will pray for you tonight. We have a prayer meeting right after this. You can attend or not. So I heard the answers out there, but you got 2 choices, 50-50 chance of getting it right. Who gets more angry at God, unbelievers or believers? believers get more angry at God. See, I knew you guys were smart enough to know that. You see, unbelievers can kind of shake their fist at God or throw something at God, but you see, they're not as invested, okay? I'm not being as critical right now. I'm just making an observation. They're not as invested, so they can just walk away and just kind of live their life, right? They're already living their life without God, you know what I mean? But for the believer, it's not that easy. For the believer, can't just walk away because he's invested. She's invested. And so it really upsets her because she dedicated her life to God, you know what I mean? And so because she did that, she is definitely more angry. And so tonight, I want to talk about the believer's anger towards God. I'm not going to shake my finger at the unbeliever. We're going to focus on the believer and what he or she or the issues they have. And let me tell you something. You and I know that the issues are not trivial. They are actually very deep and profound and theological. The anger is actually theological because it's complicated and involves spiritual issues like, he's supposed to be good, right? He's supposed to be taking care of me, right? He's supposed to make my life better, right? And so these are theological issues that are very difficult to reconcile. And so it becomes kind of like a theological anger. And for some people, it runs really deep. Like they look back, especially as you get older and older, right? You look back and you're like, man, why was I born into this family? Did you ever think about that? Or born with limitations. I'm a boy with no arms or legs. Or a major accident just totally changes your life in a split second. Or health problems. I mean, she's just way too young to die. All kinds of things going wrong, like suddenly losing a loved one. And by the way, just a 10-second plug. In October, we're going to be running a very special series on losing loved ones and just how it impacts everyone, not just older people losing spouses, but children losing parents. And so we'll be talking more specifically about that. But right now, we're just warming up. Not just losing loved ones, but, you have a talent, but now that talent is lost when an accident takes it away. Like an athlete, right? He has to have his body. But if he loses his legs, then what? Or what if you don't have talent? Okay? Like Salieri in the movie Amadeus. Salieri called himself the patron of mediocrity because he knew what talent was, but the problem was he didn't have it. And he loathed the fact that that bum Mozart had all the talent and he did not. And so he cursed God and said in a pivotal point in the movie that it is not worth living for God. So he was an angry man, but he represents a lot of people that are frustrated and angry. There are a lot of people like that, frustrated that you spend all your money and energy and time getting a college education and now you can't get a job. Or the high school student working so hard but didn't get into the college of choice. Or the single woman who cries herself to sleep every night because she wants to be married, but why isn't God providing somebody for her? Or the junior higher who works so hard, but he can't get on the honor roll. And so all these people and situations, it gets very complicated. So what do you do? What do you do when you're angry at God? Remember, it's the believer, right, who has a more intense anger against God. Now, tonight I'm looking at the clock because in about 5 minutes, you'll have a chance to text and email and interact with me, okay? What are you going to do? Well, first of all, I'm going to give you 2 things you should not do. Don't do these 2 things, okay? Number 1, don't hide your anger from God, okay? Don't hide it from God. Don't pretend, don't fake, because God knows you're angry. God sees that you're angry right now, okay? God sees that you're stewing right now in that Betty Crocker crock pot, right? Slowly cooking and marinating. God sees that. So you can't fake it. You can't say your nice, politically correct prayers and pretend everything's okay. God sees right through that. So don't fake. Don't hide. Make sense? Number one. Number two. Number two is don't vent your anger at God. Don't vent at him. Now, I have to say this because there are a lot of counselors today that actually tell you to vent your anger at God. I mean, just let him have it. I mean, just tell him off. I mean, just get it off your chest. I mean, just tell him exactly what is going on. And let me tell you something. If you do that, you're actually accusing God of just doing you wrong. And your Christian instincts should tell you something's not right with that. Because when you accuse God of wrongdoing, hey, that's not the kind of God we believe in, right? God is a good God, and he's not capable of doing it. Yeah, I know we got a problem right now. We got a lot of things wrong in our life, but the minute you accuse God of wrongdoing, hey, that's messed up. That's going in the wrong direction. So you can't vent at God because you're kind of saying, God, you should have done this. And when you do that, you're kind of judging God. You know what I mean? And that becomes a huge problem. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So we got two things that you should not do. Don't hide. Well, that's one extreme. Okay, you can't hide. But then you can't vent. All right, so if you can't do either, then what? What can you do? I'm going to give you three things that you should do, okay? Number one, check your angry heart. You should always check your heart first. Before you go to God, check your own heart. So we're going to do a little spiritual EKG tonight, all right? Let's check our hearts. Check your heart for things like your perspective on God. I mean, how do you see God? Is he like just somebody who's constantly giving and giving things to you, like he's just some big genie? You know what I mean? You got 3 wishes, and that's what he's supposed to do? Now, if you see God that way, like you pray, like he's some big genie in the sky, he doesn't give it to you, then you get mad. So again, check your heart. What is your perspective or your theology on God? And I think today, because we're living in a time where it's just so convenient, right? Everything is just like given to us, or if we got a problem, there's an app for that, right? You download that app, or something. There's always somebody that can service or help you, right? There's always an app that you can download, right, to help you in that situation. So what? Is God some big iPhone in the sky? Is that what he is? Taking care of you? And so you have to think about who God is in that situation. Wipe the blackboard. And check your heart, for example, for a lack of faith. That could be something that's going on. Meaning, think about it. Sometimes you go about making your plans, your schedule, your agenda, your life plans, and you never considered God. You never considered God's will for your life. A lot of us do that, you know what I mean? You go about planning and planning and planning, and if you've never considered God in your life, I mean, hey, that's what a believer is supposed to do, right? James chapter 4 says, listen, you who say, tomorrow or today or tomorrow, we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast and brag. All such boasting is evil. Anyone then who knows the good he ought to do and doesn't do it, sins. So there you go. That's pretty much just lays it right out, doesn't it? Our hearts might be sinful. It might not be God at all, but it could be you kind of planning out your whole life and never including God. And that could be the situation right there. Wipe the blackboard. And one more thing under here is check your selfishness. Maybe your motives are self-centered. Maybe the reason why you're going about whatever you're doing, your plans, whatever, is because it's all about you. James says, when you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives. Right? So you should check your heart. That's the EKG that I'm talking about tonight. By the way, speaking of wrong motives, who was the first angry man in the Bible? Anyone? Okay. Well, there was actually a bunch of angry people before Jonah, but nice guess, okay? Who was the first? Jonah's a really good example. He was angry, okay? He was angry. Good answer. But I said the first. Cain was the first angry man in the Bible, right? Because he offered a sacrifice to God. God didn't accept it. And then God comes down, and what was the first thing he says to Cain? Why are you angry? Why are you angry? He's the first angry man. And so he offers a sacrifice to God, but what was the problem? He offers it on his own terms. He offers it with his own agenda. And of course, God can see right through that, right? And so God doesn't accept it. Nothing wrong with the actual stuff he put on the altar, right? But it's the motives of his heart. And so that's what we got to check. We got to take a look at that and recognize that the motives and all these things are very, very important. I mean, your motives could be sinful, you know what I mean? You know, somebody came up to me last week from our church and asked, Pastor Dave, what are you going to talk about tonight? And I said, I'm going to talk about anger towards God. And the first thing he said, already? Is it already time? Oh, man. Okay. I am nowhere near done. Turn that off. Okay, turn it off. Okay. That's my 60-second warning, but I need another minute. Okay? Don't be angry. He said, look in the mirror. And so I thought that was good insight. Because we should look in the mirror. Don't be angry, you say? Actually, the next point is be angry. Okay? Express it. Now, it's different from venting. Venting is accusing, right? Pointing a finger at God and accusing him of wrongdoing, and you can't do that. But the Bible does allow for you to express your anger. Go to him. Express your anger and tell him exactly how you feel. I mean, you're not supposed to be. There's a guy, he's got a stiff upper lip. Don't be like that. You don't have to button up like that. Go to God and tell him how you feel. The Bible is filled with that. Okay, now I'm going to have to speed up because we'll talk about that in our second half. But the Bible is filled with examples. King David, for example, that did express his anger. I mean, no politically correct prayers there. I mean, he just let God have it. But not in a way of accusing, but like, where were you? Where were you? I was abandoned. I was left alone. And so, you know what? Be brutally honest with God without accusing him of wrongdoing. Okay, so you need to go to God and do that. And I'll speed it up here, Chris. Number 3 is trust in God's providence. You know, when people get angry, the counsel you get is, well, God is sovereign, okay, which is nice. But I think we need to talk more about God being in your life. That's God's providence. It's about God having an ongoing relationship with you. He doesn't just leave you alone. Give me that little toy, Chris, okay? He doesn't just leave you alone. Some people think God is like this, right? That God created you. Okay? And some people think like this. God just winds you up and just go on your way. Go on your way. And some people think that that's how God is. Wind you up and then God just goes about other things. But that's not God's relationship with us. God's relationship with us is ongoing. And if it's ongoing, okay, that means he's going to interact with us. And as he interacts with us, that means his plan for your life is going to come into your plan and it's going to intermingle. And that means it's not going to play out exactly the way that you want it to. But that's because God has a greater plan for your life. Now you play the music, okay?